Welcome to ABC News Live. I'm Diane Macedo. Our top stories this morning are that deadly shooting in Jacksonville, Florida. 3 people are dead, including the gunman. Our own Victor Okendo is there talking to witnesses now. We're also taking a look at the life and legacy of Senator John McCain, how his family is planning to remember him, and why the president may not attend those services. We have those stories coming up, but first, here are your top headlines.
A survivor of the shooting inside a video game tournament in Jacksonville is speaking out exclusively to ABC News.
When the shootings first started, I thought it was maybe a technical difficulty, maybe a light bulb blowing, and the first shot. And then the second shot, I kind of focused on the shooter, and I could see the gun, and I could see him aiming into the room.
He was aiming at someone in particular?
Yes, he was aiming at the kid that was shot first. He aimed at him, and he shot him, and then as the shots continued, that's when we ducked.
The cleanup is underway in Hawaii after Hurricane Lane dumped about 50 inches of rain over the weekend, setting off flooding and mudslides. The worst of it was on the Big Island, where several homes were damaged and dozens of people had to be rescued.
It's bad. Like, I don't know what's the right word to use, but it smells like death in there. Flooring that we just have to rip out and get rid of, and the couches, the TVs, everything's just gonna have to replace, I guess.
Investigators working for the UN's top human rights body say top military leaders in Myanmar should be prosecuted for genocide against Rohingya Muslims.
In our report, we have listed the names of the highest level of command. We believe that these individuals must be investigated and prosecuted for the crimes committed in Myanmar.
Uber's CEO is now talking about shifting the company's focus to electric bikes and scooters for shorter trips. He says it's better than cars, but admits it will mean a financial hit to the company and drivers in the short term.
And we're going to start things off with the latest in that deadly shooting in Jacksonville, Florida. 3 people are dead, including the gunman. Our own Victor Okendo is there in Jacksonville. And Victor, how did this all happen?
Well, Diane, it was just around 2 o'clock in the afternoon at the Jacksonville Landing. It's a really popular waterfront mall here in Jacksonville. A Madden NFL 19 gaming tournament was just getting going here. A lot of people come in from all around the country to take part in this. This shooter, 24-year-old David Katz, according to some people that were playing in this tournament, had just lost when he came back into this restaurant where it was being held, and then he opened fire. He killed 2 people before turning the gun on himself, also injuring 11 others. 3 people who were shot, 3 victims, were taken here to Memorial Hospital where they've received treatment. The good news is that they're all in good condition. They're all expected to pull through. We sat down with 2 of them. One was grazed by a bullet in his head, the other shot in his foot, and what they described is absolutely horrifying.
When you first hear a loud pop like that in a room full of electronics and speakers, you don't necessarily think it's a gunshot. I mean, a regular person's never around gunfire to think, man, that was a gunshot. But once you hear multiple times, and that's when I got grazed in the head and then I dropped to the ground. That's the most traumatizing thing for me personally, is that I have a little scratch on my head that, another inch, if I lean another way, then we're not having an interview in the morning.
Just scary, especially them, that their son almost, could have died. Just traveling around the U.S. playing some video game, earn some little side cash here and there, and just having some fun with some friends that we meet up a few times a year and just hang out, have a good time. And this would be the last thing you'd ever think of,
So when those shots rang out, both of those guys immediately hit the deck. We've spoken to a number of other people who ran outside of the restaurant or hid inside of bathrooms. In speaking with the trauma surgeon here at Memorial Hospital, he actually told us that in the coming days, they were getting ready for a training session on how to handle mass casualty incidents. So the fact that this just happened, it all lined up. They said that they were ready to go for anyone that came into the door. And thankfully, as I mentioned, those 2 guys that we heard from and the other victim who was shot, they are all expected to pull through, Diane.
Yeah, it sounds like a horrifying situation, but one that could have been a lot worse. Victor, what else do we know about this shooter other than the fact that he was playing and seemingly lost. Is there any sense of kind of a motive in all of this? Did he have any history of violence?
No word on a motive just yet, Diane. What we know is that he's 24 years old. Again, his name, David Katz, from the Baltimore area. He was in town for this game. His car has been impounded. The FBI has searched his home in Baltimore. But as for a specific motive here, we just don't know yet. Also, in speaking with a few of these people here, and you heard it in Amy Robach's interview this morning at Good Morning America, they do believe, some of these gamers believe, that he was targeting some specific people. But we just, haven't been able to confirm that just yet.
All right, investigators are working hard on this, no doubt. We know you are too. Victor Oquendo for us in Jacksonville, Florida. Victor, thank you. And now tributes are pouring in for the late Senator John McCain, being remembered as an American hero and the maverick of the Senate. The senator, of course, passed away on Saturday, surrounded by loved ones. And our own Terry Moran is in Sedona, Arizona, near the McCain family ranch. Terry, the focus now, of course, is on celebrating McCain's amazing life. How is this family planning on doing that?
Well, what a life it was, Diane, as everybody knows. John McCain, really an American original, tested like few of us ever are, and passing the test and then going at life with a gusto that was inspirational no matter what you thought of his politics. And so his family and this state, his adopted home state. He was born in Panama, grew up a Navy brat, and moved here really when he married Cindy McCain, and took it to his heart, and they took him to his heart. So Arizona will memorialize and celebrate John McCain with events through the week. On Wednesday, Senator McCain will lie in state in the rotunda of the Arizona State Capitol in Phoenix. And then on Thursday, there will be a memorial service in Phoenix at the Baptist Church for all of his Arizona friends and admirers. Joe Biden will speak at that memorial, one of the examples of that kind of bipartisan friendship that Senator McCain was able to forge over the years. And then in Washington, Senator McCain will lie in state in the rotunda of the United States Capitol on Friday, an honor rarely accorded, really, to members of the Senate. I think the last one was Senator Ted Kennedy, but I think only about 13 have been accorded that honor over the history of the Senate. On Saturday, there will be a national service of memory and celebration at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C., and then on Sunday, in a private ceremony, there will be the Senator McCain will be interred, as was his request, as was his wishes, at Hospital Point, the cemetery at the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis. So he goes home in a way. He was the son of Navy admirals, and the grandson of a Navy admiral. He was class of 1958 at Annapolis, and he forged very close friendships there and asked to be buried there. He will be buried there on Sunday.
Yeah, a line of service in his family that he most definitely continued. And Terry, I want you to stay with us, but I want to bring in Karen Travers, who's at the White House. Karen, President Trump tweeted his condolences to the McCain family, writing, "My deepest sympathies and respect go out to the family of Senator John McCain. Our hearts and prayers are with you." But it looks like the president won't be involved in any of the services. We're hearing he may not attend. I know they were adversaries, but how unusual is this?
It would certainly be quite unusual, Diane, and there's no official confirmation that John McCain had not invited or wished to not have President Trump at his funeral, but there certainly have been reports about that. Remember, it was just a couple months ago that the president was not a part of Barbara Bush's funeral while his wife, the First Lady, went and attended with other dignitaries there. That tweet that you just read was the only response to John McCain's passing by President Trump. There was no formal statement by the White House. There's a report that there was one drafted, presented to the president, that talked about McCain's service to the country, his decades in public service, and his heroism in Vietnam, but the president rejected that and did not want that to be released. Also notable, Diane, is that there was no proclamation over the weekend from the president ordering the flags to be lowered to half-staff, as he has done in the past for Barbara Bush, Reverend Billy Graham, John Glenn, and also after mass shootings. The flags were lowered Saturday night. When we came into the White House this morning, we noted that they were back up to full staff, as well as other flags around the city now going back up on federal buildings. Still at the Capitol, though, we're told that they were lowered.
Is it abnormal for flags to be raised again after that period of time for a senator?
It's up to the president's discretion. I think that we had looked into this and it found that, one day would be customary for a lawmaker, but certainly we saw many days for Barbara Bush from the time she passed away until she was buried. That is up to the president, but notable that there wasn't even a proclamation at all. This was just done at the White House on Saturday night.
Got it. And Karen, what's the reaction been like elsewhere in Washington?
Oh, and everybody is just lauding John McCain's decades of service to this country, starting from his time in the military, of course, all of the things that Terry Moran mentioned about his service in Vietnam and the heroism he displayed there, and then his career in Washington. I mean, John McCain loved that image he had of a maverick, somebody that didn't just go with the party line, but did what he felt was right. Well, that meant that he sometimes was very frustrating to Republicans. That meant Democrats who were always hoping that they could pull John McCain over to their side. They were frustrated by him as well, but that was the way he did it. So over the last few days, we've seen just very gushing statements about McCain's legacy, the friendships he had. It's notable that you'll have Vice President Biden speaking at a service for McCain in Arizona later this week. A lot of just bipartisan agreement that there's nobody like John McCain in Washington, and they might not see anybody like him for some time.
And Terry, we're so familiar with his, legacy in Washington and what he was known for there as the Maverick. But when it comes to Arizona, even though he wasn't born there, he really took a lot of pride in his adopted home state. What's the reaction been like there to his passing?
Yeah. Saw that. Yeah, thanks.
Well, you can imagine. Sorry, Diane. You can imagine what the reaction here has been. It's a loss. I was saying the other day, we've come out here in the pre-dawn hours into this spectacularly beautiful place every day, the McCain Ranch, just a couple of miles from here. You can see why he loved it, and it almost felt like this ancient desert was a little bit smaller with John McCain gone from it. It was interesting that, he was born in Panama. His father was in the Navy. He was raised in Hawaii and elsewhere. He lived a long time in Washington, D.C. as a kid. He went to high school in Alexandria, Virginia, and then he had that long career in Washington. But when he came to Arizona with his bride, he did fall in love with it. And something that struck me is that that kind of maverick independent streak that he had matched the politics of Arizona. They're proud here of their own kind of flinty pioneer independence. Think of Barry Goldwater. Think of Justice Sandra Day O'Connor. Their political heroes have that same, don't mess with us, we're going to make up our own minds attitude. And he fit right in. He won election to the United States Senate 6 times, including in 2016, tough race when there was already the populist Tea Party and then Trumpian movement in the Republican Party. They still elected him. So you get the sense here that a great Arizonan has left us as well as a great American. And that's why in the coming days you'll see people, I think, filing by that casket in the Arizona State Capitol and saying goodbye, along with Joe Biden at the memorial service on Thursday. It's an interesting journey that brought him here to this beautiful place, a place he loved, and a place that he chose really to spend his last months in.
It is indeed, Terry, and in so many ways he's irreplaceable, but the Arizona governor now has the nearly impossible task of appointing a replacement for John McCain's seat in the Senate. How will that process work, and are there any names being floated as possibilities at this point?
Sure, it's an interesting process. State law provides for it. If there is a vacancy by death or resignation before May 30th of an election year, and we're past that, they just add that empty seat into the November elections. But since this is August, there will be an appointment by the governor, Doug Ducey. One of the other aspects of the law is that it must be of the same party as the departing senator. So he is required by law to name a Republican. He could name himself. He said he didn't want to do that. So some of the candidates, John McCain's widow, Cindy McCain, who has in her own right been a philanthropist, been right at his side during his campaigns. She's being talked about as a potential replacement for her husband. She would be more moderate than the current Republican Party, it is believed. The governor's chief of staff, there's former Senator John Kyle is being mentioned. This person, whoever it is, this Republican, will serve until 2020. There will then be a special election to serve out the rest of John McCain's term, which would go until 2022. So that's the process. But one of the things Governor Ducey said, he said, let's just take a moment. Let's honor John McCain And so he's decided he's not going to talk about the replacement until after John McCain is laid to rest. So we won't hear until sometime probably next week.
Understandable. All right, Terry Moran there from Sedona, Arizona, and our own Karen Travers from the White House. Thank you both so much. And coming up, we're going to touch on the new controversy surrounding the Pope and why he's now facing calls for resignation. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
ABC News, straightforward.
Almost every home here has sustained damage from this storm.
The roof is like 3 houses down, and the roof's, I think it's right there.
We're glad you're okay.
Oh, thank you.
You can see the police barricade. You can hear the gunfire just around this wall, these extremists. So this is one of those checks. Around the corner here are the children. What's your name? Tonight, several developing stories as we come on the air. Back on the job.
Yeah, back in the job.
I'll build my country back. You've been doing it this way for more than 100 years. It's that important to you. How are you? How you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you.
ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir is America's most watched newscast, and we thank you.
So good.
Hello.
Ooh. Now this girl be doing her own thing, and this girl ain't never the same. Look at this. It's just one click away.
It has everything right there.
Oh, the wellness section. Any exercise that I can find, I'm just like, yes, thank you, thank you, thank you.
I love the deals and steals. I am a foodie, so I do love the foodie stuff. I'm new to cooking, so getting these easy recipes has been super sweet.
The lifestyle pieces are really cool.
Amazing.
The new GoodMorningAmerica.com.
GoodMorningAmerica.com.
I love it, and they love it. I've never seen nothing like this. Can I get an amen?
Oh yeah, girl, I'm down with it.
The new GoodMorningAmerica.com.
It's with me all day.
You've never seen nothing like this. So strap.
Welcome back to ABC News Live. We want to get right to Pope Francis facing calls for his resignation amid accusations that he failed to take action against an American cardinal accused of sexual abuse. Now, the Pope was in Ireland over the weekend where he made a big apology, and our Julia McFarlane is covering it all for us. Julia, what do we know so far about this accusation against the Pope?
Hi, Diane. So this is a letter that has been published by another cardinal who has been deeply, deeply critical of Pope Francis. And in this letter, he has revealed this explosive allegation that Pope Francis knew for many years of the sexual assault allegations against Cardinal McCarrick. Now, the allegations stem back to decades ago when he was a priest in New York. He allegedly abused a number of seminarians. Now, he stepped down. He resigned from office last month. But this letter, which has divided a lot of the Catholic leadership, there are cardinals who have gone to Pope Francis's defense, others who are rallying against him, saying that the fact that he allegedly knew and was not open about it and did not apply previous sanctions against the Cardinal McCarrick after the allegations were made public, that he really should resign.
Now, the timing of all of this is interesting, too, because we've known, obviously, about other accusations of sexual abuse within the church, predominantly the big case in Boston a few years back. But even recently, we've seen other accusations come out in Chile, in Australia, as well as others in Philadelphia. So what is the general tone of all of this? Could this be a big moment of change for the Catholic Church?
I think this is, Diane. In recent years, there have been a number of wide-ranging investigations into systematic child abuse and subsequent cover-ups by the church. And, this papal visit in Ireland, a papal visit to Ireland is normally always seen as a sort of homecoming for the Pope. In 1979, when Pope John Paul II visited, the streets were thronged with the faithful, and he was met with rapturous applause. Scenes so different now when Pope Francis visited this weekend. Now, what we have seen in recent years, we have seen absolutely incredible investigations digging up huge numbers of child abuse in the Catholic Church. In Australia last year, a commission found that almost 4,500 children had been abused by 7% of all priests in Australia. In Pennsylvania recently, we saw that since in the last 70 years, 300 priests had abused more than 1,000 children. In Ireland, the Ryan Commission, the Ryan Report, which has been looking into historical cases of sex abuse, that found that 30,000 children had been abused at a number of institutions across the country. Now, this papal visit also coincided with a period of change for Ireland, sort of reanalyzing its relationship with the Catholic Church. We've seen landmark referendums where the Irish have voted to legalise abortion and legalise gay marriage. Now, it is clearly coming to some kind of reckoning with its identity as a Catholic country. And of course, this visit has coincided with all that. And there were people in Ireland who said that they were going to boycott Pope Francis's events. They weren't going to turn up, or they were going to protest. And I think this is really, really sort of indicative of the widespread anger across the world. I mean, the Church, the Roman Catholic Church, an institution, a global institution of 1.2 billion people, and a global institution that has a global tainted record. And Catholics every Sunday, every day, if you're a Catholic priest, you stand up and you say, I confess to Almighty God for the sins in my thoughts and in what I've failed to do. And the Church is clearly failing to practice what it preaches.
And I know the Pope, while in Ireland, also made this big apology. Who was he hoping to reach with that, and did it work?
Well, Pope Francis met with 9 survivors of sexual abuse while he was in Ireland on Saturday. And a week before his visit, he had written an open letter addressing all of these mounting allegations of child abuse and cover-ups. Hoping probably to sort of quell the kind of antagonism that people were expecting that he would be met with. I don't think that really worked. He gave an unplanned speech again on Sunday, again sort of describing the shame of the Church, but it failed to frankly address the Vatican's role and the Church's leadership in covering up these crimes, in really owning it, and he did not apologize on behalf of the Church. And that was, I think, what a lot of people will have been hoping for.
Yeah, for many it just wasn't enough. Julia McFarland there from London, monitoring it all for us. More to come on this, no doubt, Julia. Thank you. And now we want to get to the weather as a heat wave moves from the Midwest over to the east. Ginger Z is in our weather center, keeping track of it all for us. Ginger?
Diane, thank you. Let's go ahead and get straight into it and talk heat. So Reno, Nevada, just to give you a little idea of some of the heat that's been happening across the country, had 90-plus degree days for 56 days. That smashed their old record of 51. That was the most they've had ever in their recorded history. And now the heat's sliding east. It's because of that high-pressure system, that big ridge keeping the jet stream up north. The heat index for today will reach 100 from St. Louis to Chicago and Memphis. Now, a high-pressure system rotates clockwise, so as this thing moves east, those south or southwesterly winds where the hottest air is are going to make it here into the Northeast by Tuesday and Wednesday. You see Wednesday afternoon, Philadelphia will feel like 102, Boston, 96. This is what it looked like in Indiana when 100-plus mile-per-hour winds slid through. Those are damaging winds that come in straight lines. That's going to be possible again today. Even if they're 60-plus, taking down power lines certainly can do damage to homes. From Green Bay up to Marquette, Milwaukee, you're included in this. And then that same cold front slides slightly east And you'll include Milwaukee again on Tuesday with a severe weather threat that reaches Chicago, Lansing, Michigan, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Kansas City, up through Cedar Rapids and Des Moines. And then we have to talk beauty. Can we do that? Just a little fall beauty happening already in the Aspens in Colorado. And a little bit of fall/winter feel because the temperatures have plummeted and now snow. Yes, you're seeing a snowfall forecast. More than 10 inches possible in some of those northern Rockies. So, Diane, things are changing.
53 days of a heat wave, 102 in Pennsylvania, and now we're talking snow. Mother Nature is confused. Luckily, Ginger Z is keeping track of her for us. Ginger, thank you. And that does it for us here at ABC News Live. Don't forget, you can check the day's headlines all day long at abcnews.com or at the ABC News app. For ABC News Live, I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for watching and have a great day, everybody.